Welcome to Coaching in Session,
where limits end and growth begins.
Hosted by Michael Rearden.
This is your space to challenge the ordinary,
unlock your potential,
and step boldly into your next chapter.
Your mindset journey continues.
Welcome, Kyle Asperger, to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
Michael, I'm great. Thank you for having me today. Honored to be here.
Of course. Today, we're going to be talking about your work, marketing coach, but you do so much more with mindset and helping people realize what is marketing to their business and maybe even to their goals in life, because maybe marketing is not everything about business. It could be about self as well. When we think of ourselves on social media, we want the likes, we want the attention, we want the accolades. And some people don't necessarily know how to do it correctly in our world today, because there's going to be so many trends and algorithms swaying a mindset this way or that way. And we're going to be getting into that and all very shortly. But if you could, can you tell the world who you are, what you do, and of course, how you help?
Well, who I am, I'm originally from Chicago. My degree was in graphic design. Like, my dad was kind of in that, Don Draper-ish era of advertising and all that stuff. And he, very interestingly so, he ended up, he retired in law firm marketing specifically. And I think a lot of people, when they hear the legal field, they think, okay, well, that's pretty linear, and creativity is perhaps removed from that conversation. So what he did, he's always been an extraordinary writer, and I think some of the best creative directors and marketers, advertisers out there have a real grounding in their ability to write, to communicate. He managed to do essentially something that's impossible for a lot of people, which is to make legal funny in marketing terms, and in a legitimate sense, not slapsticky or, just the tongue-in-cheek stuff, but it was impressive. And I wish that I could recall the exact thing in this specific dossier that he showed me that he, developed for them. But it's stuck with me for a very long time, because I figured, if you can make law firm marketing exciting, intriguing, funny, there's a lot that you can do then. So that was kind of one of the initial, points of interest that kind of had me saying, all right, how do I essentially take this creative bent, this maybe just even ability to draw, help me develop my own writing capabilities, fairly early on. And, how is it that you take these creative exploits and actually make decent money with it? The marketing and advertising field, it's wonderful application. So that was sort of the impetus to kind of get me into it. I studied graphic design at Miami University, and essentially coming out of that, ended up in a few different corporate, positions, figuring myself out, then ended up at a small design agency for about a year and a half. And they had sort of that marketing agency structure. And so that was really the first exposure, the first real opportunity to sink my teeth in and see okay, this is invigorating for me, because I get to work with numerous different types of people, different clientele on different projects. I'm not just simply doing one repetitious same action for the same company day after day. That was, that's really what got me into it. But, these days, who am I? I don't know. I'm a dude I've been an entrepreneur for nearly a decade, was a marketing agency owner, and just kind of came to realize, in this age of AI, where AI is taking over and automating so much of what we understand marketing to be, I say that because the marketing realm is always changing, constantly fluctuating. I just deemed, a marketing agency in today's day and age, it's not the right product for the market. I can tell based on the amount of distrust, from the folks out there. So essentially what this sort of laid the foundation for, without perhaps me even really being aware of it at the time, was my now coaching practice. I am a marketing coach. And what that means is, I think about it like Batman. If we need to simply just bring it down to one simple core notion here. Batman is a vigilante, the crime fighting vigilante, to go out and, essentially stuff the evildoers. Within the marketing realm, there are a lot of people, marketers especially, that are fantastic salespeople. They could come to the entrepreneur, the maker, the business owner, and say, well, boy, do I have the solution for you. And that offer, that conversation can be compelling like no other. And to the individual that doesn't really know the depths or the nuances of whatever that topic area is, whatever that proposed solution is, if they're receiving that information from a confident individual who's a salesperson, they could get had. That's a very simple way of just saying that there's a lot of business being handled that people get into, and it may not end up being the right thing because these marketers specifically guarantee results. And one of the biggest problems is that nothing in marketing is a guarantee. So that's what this conversation breeds, is distrust, because if the marketer simply doesn't deliver, then now we have customers who are trained to say, okay, well, marketers are going to promise this. They're not going to be able to deliver it. So how is it that we go about finding new solutions? In a lot of ways, that's why AI exists. But that's also why the coach exists, to help them see and diagnose these potential pitfalls, money pits, whatever you want to call it, hopefully before they fall into it. So what it really means is just train them so that they have the same knowledge base and same foresight as a marketer.
Yeah, it's a way to help people see their blind spots as well.
Yes.
Because most people are not marketers, especially if you're just a business owner, started a business, got an LLC, and you're going in, you probably know very little of marketing, and you're just going to say, okay, well, I'm going to make a Facebook page, or let me, do a little Instagram page, and let me take some pictures. And not saying that those people are not successful, because we can see that people are. But then there is an aspect of luck, because I've talked to people who have businesses or they're influencers, and they always say that it is consistency. It is making sure you're doing the right things at the right time, and then a little bit of luck. So it's like, is there a cookie cutter formula for someone to follow, or is it always going to be dynamic in this ever changing landscape? Because where marketing was when you were younger, when your dad was dealing with it, and then now today where AI is so prevalent, we can see the contrast between the two, and we can maybe speculate what is to come next. Is it going to be beyond AI, or is this just going to be different variations of it?
Yeah, and that's what, so AI and speculation, I'm a hardcore realist, just like by nature. It wasn't even really by choice. I think, having gone down the entrepreneurial path, that carved me into a realist. You get so many different, blows along the way that you start to, anticipate, if I start speculating too much, then I'll kind of, hype myself up perhaps about, something that may or may not exist. In my mind, I'm like, no need to hype up if we don't have, tangible evidence of something. So we'll just look at the data and just see where things are going. But that's we're in a very weird space, because you're bang on the money that all right, look at my dad's era. We had some fairly old school traditional advertising methods. I mean, we're talking all right, cable TV advertising. We're talking print advertising. We're talking billboards. You're flying down the highway 70 miles an hour. And you get 4 words maybe that you hope stick in these individuals' minds. I'm not going to go down the list of all these different, the tactics, but these days, think about, I haven't seen the movie, but Marty Supreme. You know what I'm talking about?
The only Marty I know is from Back to the Future.
So this is a movie, Timothy Chalamet just came out, and they leaked on social media a marketing meeting that Timothy Chalamet and the team, the crew was involved in. And essentially they took some very abstract marketing tactics. In other words, they had essentially like orange suits and whatnot. That was a recurring component of the film. And so essentially one tactic that they developed were orange suits that were essentially some level of designer. I don't know who made them, but this is a collector's item, more or less, and send them to very specific influential individuals, whether social media influencers or other, A-list stars, people that are extraordinarily well known, and say, all right, well, we know that you are a fashion forward individual. We think you'll like this. We would love it if you would wear it to, say, an interview or a press conference or an award ceremony or something, to help generate a little bit of buzz. So that's one very definitive way of marketing these days. But that's also to say, the reason I'm saying any of this is because the marketing landscape is changing. Social media, this influencer era. Somebody with the right level of following can make a video that is seemingly organic and just by sheer happenstance be using a specific utensil or product or something. And it's that subtle that the marketing comes in, and you see it all the time in films when you see the big hero shot of the new Hummer in the Barbie movie. I don't know how much money was traded for that, but we are inundated with this stuff in a lot of cases, whether or not we even realize it. This podcast, seemingly organic conversation, at the end of the day, I'm a marketing coach. I'm selling that. So it's a much more like, we're less in your face. We're more real, because we've kind of gotten to this point where like the old school, commercial conversation, it wasn't a conversation. It was like, think like 50s dish detergent or something like that. And I think people just got to a point where they're like, this isn't real. There's nothing more here. We lost the human. And so we got to this hyper-organic form of what we understand modern marketing to be, essentially.
Yeah. I spoke to one of my friends, worked for a couple of Fortune 500 companies. He was marketing. He was doing marketing for them and advertising. And what he told me when he looked over everything for me, because I had asked him, I said, just look over everything. He goes, everything is laid out really well, but it's a lot, right? It's like, it's a lot coming to somebody, because we do a lot of different types of coaching here. One of the things he said was, if you focus on one, niching down, you can just focus on that emotion. Where it's like, if you want to be a relationship coach, or you want to do that. And basically I told him, like, what we do here is not exactly what is the typical norm of what a coaching business is. And he was like, okay, I can see that. Because I remember speaking to my business coach early on about that too. I was like, should I niche down? Because she was charging $500 an hour. And she was like, no, I don't think you need to, because of where I was going with the mindset, because the mindset is the blanket part of everything. It's just how someone is thinking at that current state of being or time. And he said emotion was number one, whereas like people need that emotion, right? So think of New Year's, right? People, they want to get in shape, they want money, they want these things. And if you are not necessarily promising them, well, I don't promise them, I say that it's available to you, where you can go get it if you want it. But how many people are really going to do the work long term to get it? So when we look at the aspect of marketing today, yes, there is going to be possibly some bad actors in the sense of, hey, I'm going to give you this XYZ. You're going to be 50 pounds less if you do this. And all of it is a proponent still of them if they truly want it. Because I'm extremely honest with people. My clients, they, sometimes they look at me, they go, Mike, I don't have anyone else in my life that will say the things that you will tell me. Because it's the hard truth. And I'm not here to sugarcoat things. I'm here to be honest. I'm here to let you know what needs to happen. And you can take it or leave it. So this is why my coaching is a little bit different than, oh, just tell me what your emotions are. I'm not a therapist. I don't do all those things. I just want what you want. But we have to want it together, because I can't make you want your dream life or your destiny life any more than if I want it for you. Yes, I want to see you do good. And I know people, they're thinking in that, in their mind, if they have a business, all right, how can I make my business shine through all of this distrust, all of these influencers? So the conversation now is, what do people need to do today to start, to keep on going so they can finish, so they can be successful in the terms of their business or being an entrepreneur?
That is an exceedingly loaded question. It is
I told you in the beginning.
So here's the deal. I'm not going to give any specific information on any of that, because it is such a situational thing that I don't advise people unless I understand, all right, where are you in this progress? What resources do you have available? In other words, manpower, tech, money, time. What's your product? Who are you talking to? Who is your market? All of that is a heavy, heavy influence in that. The diagnosis. How, at least the way that I heard it, I heard a couple different questions in there. One, how do we get started? Say, for the curious first-time entrepreneur, learn and do. That's it. Learn the craft, learn the product, learn the ins and outs of whatever the industry is. But then also go further than that. Look at competition. Think about, okay, maybe a vague business model of like, what are you going to sell? What are you going to do? What are you solving for these folks or other businesses? Look at the landscape. The internet, social media, all these different AI solutions out there, they have brought this world together. So we have a vast awareness of all these different solutions out there. Chances are there's going to be someone that does something that's pretty darn similar to like what you do. So understand what they're doing and then look at it objectively so that you can see, all right, how is it that I differentiate myself from them? All right, so if we're thinking about it from the individual who's been going for some time, heck, I was at a party last night and there were a lot of conversations. 2025 was a shit year for a lot of people, plain and simple. Whether or not this is due to AI, I'm not going to say why, but it was rough. That is across the board fact. So there are numerous people who have been in business for themselves for nearly a decade. And in 2025, there was an interesting conversation I was in last night. This individual who had previously, like many entrepreneurs, tie a lot of their identity to what they do. The service, the product, anything, which fine. I'm not here to say that's either good or bad. I've heard that in the dating world, women apparently hate it when entrepreneurs define themselves by what they do. I think that's asinine. Let somebody find purpose in business. You can find purpose in many different aspects of life. But in a lot of ways, this individual that I'm in conversation with expressed this notion that he has, in a way, lost what was his previous purpose. And that's a really, really difficult spot to be in because like a simple conversation like this trivializes the depths of the entire situation. If somebody has lost what they previously acknowledged to be, this is my grounding purpose in life and, helps me, assist people in however it is that you assist people. So if he's in this spot where, as he's stated, simply parroting, he's given up. And this is, back in August even. It's like, all right, how does somebody continue to push through? It's situational again, but like it's a whole heck of a lot of inner work. You need to understand, all right, what is it that drives me? What drove me previously about this initial application? What was it that really kept me going through the years? What worked? What didn't work? And, how is this these days applied? In other words, let's look at this specific product in today's world. Has it evolved? Am I able to evolve with the times and continue innovating? If not, then, that's where the mindset of, all right, I need to be flexible. I'm a flexible being because what I understand in today's world is technology times are changing so quickly that humanity almost can't even keep up with what we are building. So the flexibility, the fluidity, ability, which for somebody like me, I'm blessed to have that. Others, though, that maybe have families, children, whatever obligations, that just makes this process even more difficult if you're tied to whatever those components are. So again, it's completely situational, but you need to just look inward. And if you can't truly do that work, then seek out the coaches, the mentors, the friends, the individuals that will give it to you straight and say, buddy, you got to be able to look at this specific thing objectively. And before you can do anything with that clarity is going to help you understand a lot about you, about your situation, about what that value, that grounding nothing that you need in life. So go find the people that will just give it to you straight. Because if you don't have people or access to people like that in life, that's going to make this process, I'm going to be bold and say impossible if you are not able to figure it out yourself. Because you need people that can help to, if not give you the answer, which I don't think that a coach is meant to give you the answer. The coach is really meant to simply, hold your hand and help walk you down the path so that you explore and you uncover these different components together. I think that's a good coach in my mind. So in other words, they show you a path and they equip you with the tools in order to essentially find your way.
I like to say damn near impossible. It's so close to it.
There you go.
And I'm sure you've probably seen videos of people who do trick shots or something, right? They throw a basketball off a dam or a frisbee or a golf ball into like this small cup. And even though the probability is so low, it's like playing the lotto. The probability is so low, people still attempt to try it because that number one time or the one time they get it, it's everything, right? And I always tell people, it's like, why stop before we get to that moment? That one thing that's just like, wow, I'm so happy I stuck through all the hardship and I learned all of these things, because there's a lot of things that I don't know. And there's a lot of things that I outsource or delegate because number one, I don't want to learn it. Or number two, I just don't have the availability to learn to a degree. And especially in an ever changing landscape, I can't keep up. It's just too challenging. Even when I was a teacher, every year you would go in for your teacher orientation, basically. And you would go in and they would tell you a new program they have. I remember when Blackboard came out and they were like, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to put all our grades in here. And all the teachers are like, can't we just use our pen and pad how we used to? And it was
this
just
was
like
really
a learning
working for me. Why are we switching that?
Exactly. And it's just every year we have this new thing and the STAR testing for kids. And it was just always something new and just always something on the docket. So we were always having to learn something new. But then at the same time, it was like we could never perfect something because everything was always changing.
Yeah.
And I understand
stick around long
schooling.
enough.
Exactly. And I understand schooling and education, especially our world today, is always good to be different. Like today, Chromebooks in almost every classroom. So when we were growing up, the coolest thing we had were the blue calculators, and we would get them for math. And I was like, oh man, this is great. And sometimes they would give us like coins and like the plastic coins, pennies, nickels,
Mhm.
dimes, and they didn't give us dollars or anything, but we had some fake plastic coins. And today, I don't even think kids are going to be learning anything about pennies because they're gone.
Yeah, change is not. I was given change at Costco the other day. I'm like, what do I do with this now? Like, where do I put this? It's a weird concept, but yes.
Well, for change for me, I give it to my kid. He's 3, and he has a huge piggy bank. It's like a safe. It's like a silver stainless steel box, and he loves putting coins in there, dollars. I remember one time I had some money on my desk. He took the money and he put it in his box. I was like, "Where's my money?"
This is
And
mine
he's
now.
like, "Here." Yeah. So I was like, "Whatever," but it was just funny because I remember going to my wife. I was like, "Where's the money that I put on my desk?" And she was like, "I don't know." And then I was like, "Oh, I know where it is. It's locked up good."
My dad would always keep like spare change and like maybe a couple bucks like in his like coat pockets. And I, very similar to your son, I made a habit of like raiding his closet and cleaning out the pockets. And I would walk out a very, very rich man.
I remember even when we were younger, the ice cream man would come rolling by and we would look in the sofa and we'll find a couple of coins. We'll look on the counters. We'll find a couple of coins. And it's funny because the next day we will look in the same sofa and we'll find more coins. It was like this is like a money tree
Mhm.
or a money sofa, just
Yep.
always some coins in there. And I just think of how we can differentiate between our past growing up to today. My kid has never been to the ice cream truck. He probably never will be unless he really wants to waste money because we have ice cream in the home. I'm like, just go into the freezer and get whatever you want. It's the same ice cream that they're probably selling. They go to Costco, they load up, and we have the same thing. I'm sure if you want to pay, double, triple the prices, sure, go for it. But it's not economical for you to do that. You can get 3 times the ice creams if we just go to the store, and it's right there too. So we are living in a different time where some things have been lost, where people might not recognize or realize that people would watch TV and there were ads in between and there was infomercials. Think of Tony Robbins. He started his coaching career with an infomercial, right? He had like a 30-minute infomercial, whatever it was. And it was like in the 80s and 90s. And that's how he truly became prominent. People might look at Tony and say, oh, well, I guess I have to create an infomercial. But guess what? People are not watching
Yeah.
TV right
Well, when's
now.
the last time anybody was able to focus on anything for 3 whole minutes?
True.
Legitimate question. I don't have an answer, but I would be terrified to hear a real answer because I know where my brain space is, and I have, like social media is just a horrible, horrible thing for me, but yet I need it in a lot of ways. And I'll tell you, I live with, a 1 and a 4-year-old in this household. Like it's just,
It's a lot. It's hectic. But what I can tell you is that as we have all of our experiences and we can see our children or the young children around us growing up, we can see their experiences, we can appreciate the change. I just came out with a video beginning of the year. I basically said that there's a generational gap happening where we can see the generation of the old, our parents, our grandparents, and we can see the new generations that are coming out. We can even see our kids and what they're going to be dealing with and all the challenges that they have. Marketing, one of the things marketing does is, or I think targets the best is, if you have a problem or if you have a challenge or if you have a need, we can solve that. And what I wanted to ask you is, when we're looking at marketing in that term or in that sense of there is something that someone desires, is it something where we can just say, if you want happiness, call this number? If you want a house that never will deteriorate, get this material, like super glue or Gorilla Tape or whatever it be. They market it in a way of like, this is the perfect product for you. Is there a perfect solution for someone, or is it just their solution?
Well, and that's where marketing leads us astray, because we look at these different things that, like, heck, think about Chinese food. How many Chinese restaurants have you walk by and you're like, best Chinese food? It's the same exact sentiment, just in, different application. This is just, it's lazy marketing. Because you just you could get into the nuance of who is it that we're actually serving. Because what this says is then we understand our people, our market. We understand the life that they live, the problems that they endure, and whether or not we're catering to all of the problems, simply one of them, or potentially giving them a solution that they didn't even know that they needed. That knowledge of this is our market is what fosters that long-term following. Because if the business has done the research to say, we understand you and we're leveling with you, we're on the same playing field, it takes work, it takes research, it takes a lot of trial and error. It is not the lazy route. The lazy route is saying we are the best, plain and simple, that's it. Why are you the best? Why should I give a goddamn about what you believe is the best if I'm the product or the consumer here? So whenever these companies say they are the best, it's kind of the same notion that I already brought up, is the best is the equivalent of saying this is the answer. And surprise, if it ends up not being the right answer, then we have a lot of people who are going to be pretty bummed out because they're like, they already said they were perfect. I'm not getting perfect. I'm getting like below average at best. And it's just a matter of perspective, because perspective simply means, and this is why I don't advise on, broad spanning questions. It's like, it's entirely situational. The world is so interconnected that we have access to people through social media. It's why data about Mike, about Kyle, about, the way that Facebook knows us, the way that AI and Alexa and Siri are all listening to everything. It's just, this is all the most valuable data. Like when Adobe bought up Canva, I believe it was like a $4 billion transaction. Canva was essentially a free use iteration of like Photoshop. In Photoshop, if I think about it, I had to go through like trial and error. Not only do I have a degree in this where I had to learn older school iterations of Photoshop, but then I know there's different like YouTube channels and figuring out, all right, how do I do some of the fancier stuff to, spruce up the work? And Canva is over here just making all of that simple for the everyday user without having it's like a $69 monthly fee for Adobe Creative Cloud. So when Adobe buys them up, now, granted, this is probably the only amount of speculation I'll do here is to say that I believe it's a $4 billion price tag because Adobe bought the data that Canva had amassed. They had a tremendous amount of user data, because a program like that, to make it user-friendly for the everyday individual, it takes a lot of conversation, a lot of trial and error, a lot of understanding how the brain works, how the human works, and what they kind of need, expect, desire. So Adobe saw that as an opportunity to get some very critical data to infuse that into their product base. That's my hypothesis, at least. So all of that is to say, it's $4 billion. Marketing, the good kind of marketing that makes people stick around and actually have a heart, for whatever this product is. It's because these businesses, these individuals, whoever, they know a lot about the client base that they're talking to. It's that simple. If you research and know who you're talking to, chances are the recipient, they'll give you the time of day, if not a lot more.
Yeah, very true. And then the aspect of if they like you or they want to do business with you. And
Then
there's always,
possibility.
yes, there's always that aspect. And one of the things we do here in Coaching in Session really well is we give the audience a wide breadth of different types of coaches. You're not the first marketing coach we've had on. Maybe you're like the fifth. We have like 700 plus episodes because marketing is so niche and not everyone's going to need a marketer. So we have it maybe once or two times a year. And I give people all of these different types of coaches, not because I say this one is better than this person. I say because what you need is dependent on you, from your upbringing, your psychology, everything, your mindset. You need to find that right mix, that right fit. I've had multiple coaches. I had multiple counselors in my life, and some did really well with me and some didn't. It's not that the ones that didn't were bad. It's just that they weren't for me. It wasn't my fit. When I was working out in the gym and getting trainers, and it's like some trainers were like, I know what you need, Michael. And some were like, hey, this is what you should do. And I'm like, no. I need someone who's going to push me. I remember one of my yoga instructors in Connecticut. Her name was Lexi, and she was phenomenal. And all the teachers at that school were, but she was my favorite. And it wasn't because she was like hot or anything, or like she was like super sweet to me. It was because she pushed me more than anyone else. She was like, I see what you can do and I'm pushing you to the limit. This is why I loved to go into her classes. Whenever she had a class, I was there. And it wasn't that if she was on vacation and there was only some other instructors, it didn't mean I didn't go to the classes still. It was just that there was a different mindset when I walked in. It was like, I have something to prove, not only to myself, but to her to a degree. So it was like, oh, I have this coach, I have this mentor, I have this teacher, I have this trainer that's there to really bring out the best in me. And I mean, you can look at any of the past episodes and you can find people who will bring out the best in you. I encourage people to find what you need. What is the right fit for you? What is your cup of tea? And, from our conversation today, people can get a good feel of who you are, Kyle, of your mindset, of your mentality, of how you can help them, where you can help them. And then from there, they can begin. So as we begin to wrap up, Kyle, I'd love to get some final words, some final thoughts from you. And then please tell everyone how they can reach out and find you.
I guess what I'll say for me, because I can't quite diagnose, who is the listener. I don't want to, go off the path, but we just stepped into 2026. I know that the episode's not going to air immediately, but on the heels of a rough 2025 for a lot of people, there's really I wake up and I say essentially two things to kick off my day, as a form of sort of manifestation, if you want to call it that. Perhaps you're just wiring the brain to get something going in the right direction. There's two things. One is I was adopted at birth, and had the adoption not happened, had my parents, Liz and John, not adopted me as they did and given me the opportunities, the experiences, and the blessing of a life that they have, Mike, you and I wouldn't be talking right now. It is plain and simple as that. So one of the things that I say is thank you to all four of them for making those decisions, those choices. They were hard. It's an open adoption. I'm in touch with everybody. These are not easy choices that have been made in most cases of adoption. I think that's a pretty consistent sentiment. So I thank them. And the second thing is quite simply, I'm ready to work. Because 26 is going to be, a couple people, especially in podcasts, people love to know, all right, what's next? Well, great. I got some projects to look forward to. Some great clientele right now. But beyond that, it's a question mark of a year. I don't know what's next. AI, the landscape it's changing, as we all know. We don't quite have an endpoint yet. They're not one that's readily, availably understood. I'd say. And it's kind of a terrifying disconnect between the everyday uses and I think some of the top, the people that are actually in charge of these AI solutions and tools and what they are actually planning. We aren't really privy to that conversation. There's a lot of unknowing in that. So in other words, we're in a very liminal sort of changing landscape. And when things are changing, people are more reticent to make decisions, to make choices, to invest in things. So right now, that could be one of the reasons why maybe it's not the best time for coaches, because people think we have AI tools at our fingertips, at our disposal. So why would I, invest in a more expensive coach if I can just, pay whatever the monthly fee is for these different AI solutions and just bada bing, bada boom, easy. So there's that. But the essence of these final words here is simply just my mindset going into 2026, given that I feel that it's kind of a question mark of a year, is like all I can do is take my work ethic and ability to be flexible. Those are really the only two components. I don't know what's next. When the time comes, I'll get there. I always rise to whatever the occasion is. Until I hit that occasion, I can't quite see what it is right now. I know where I slot into the mix. I know where I excel and, what I bring to the table. But beyond that, times are changing fast.
Okay. And where can people find you?
Well, the coaching practice itself is called Anarchy for a Day, Anarchy for FOR a day.com. If you want, just give me a follow on Instagram, Facebook. Instagram is Kyle Asperger 301. Those are probably, the easiest ways to keep in touch.
All right, easy enough. All the links are right down below, so people don't have to worry about spelling or having a hard time finding you. Just click what you got to click below. If you like Facebook, click it. If you like Instagram, click it. If you want to check out his website, learn more about what Kyle's doing. Kyle, I do want to thank you for coming on, spending some time, of course, and talking about your work. It was a very interesting topic of marketing in our world today, and especially in an ever-changing landscape that we're going to be walking into.
Mike, thanks for having me, brother.